I'd like to say how delighted I am that eFactor is bringing this unique event into North East Lincolnshire. We've called it an audience with, because what we've done is looked at the needs of local businesses, and particularly during these challenging times, and thought, during Global Entrepreneurship Week, what can we do to lift the spirits, to make people believe in what they used to believe in when they first started their business? So we went out and looked for the best possible speakers that we could bring to this area. And we found them. If you look at the lineup, we have Ruth Amos, a young 22-year-old entrepreneur who started her own company when she was doing a GCSE project and now is a successful entrepreneur. We have Chris Ball, somebody who's one of the best young entrepreneurs coming out of Peter Jones Enterprise Academy or Entrepreneurs Academy, here to speak to business people. And of course, our headline speaker, the internationally acclaimed Mone, who's OBE, who's been recognised for her contribution to business, who has been through some extremely challenging times to become a multinational, successful businesswoman. And she's been speaking to people such as Bill Clinton, Mikhail Gorbachev, and now she's here at the Whitgift Theatre Academy in Grimsby. It's fantastic. And we now have a full house of over 200 people who are sitting ready and waiting to listen to those three outstanding speakers. That's the reason we've put this on, because the people in that room are people who are going to make a difference to the economy in our area. They're the people that employ other people. They're the people that will make a success of North East Lincolnshire. And a little bit extra to add to it, we've also recognised through Inc., which is our enterprise in education brand, that it's a great thing to be able to inspire the business people of today, but we need to start thinking about the business people of tomorrow. Those people who are working in school to pass their GCSEs or their A-levels, they need an insight into enterprise, into the value and the positivity of owning your own business or employing people, becoming one of the people who drive the economy. Now, in North East Lincolnshire, over half of the employed adults are employed by small to medium enterprises. That's local businesses. So the school children that we've invited to this event this evening are going to be the employers and business owners of tomorrow. That's what we recognise at eFactor, that this is a long-term commitment, and any area, any town that grasps enterprise and grasps entrepreneurial behaviour as not just a thing you do but an attitude is going to be a success, and it's going to see through this recession and out the other side to become a very successful part of the UK PLC.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure to have Chris Ball here, who I can say is an absolute bundle of energy and enthusiasm for business. But Chris, for those who may not know you, how did you get into business?
I guess for me, it started from birth, like right from a toddler. I was ultra competitive, winning races, and I was always the kid that in school who was coming up with the games that everybody would play. And then I started just things like setting conkers and setting homework, and then it just kind of progressed. And I never kind of identified myself as an entrepreneur. Didn't do too well in school at all. A bit of a rebel without a cause. It wasn't until I actually got out of school and I started looking at entrepreneurship, looking into the mindsets of entrepreneurs, that I realised actually I'm not a misbehaved person at all. I'm just in the wrong environment. Right. School, that kind of thing wasn't for me, because in maths class, I had a web design book in front of the maths book, so it looked like I was reading maths. I was actually wanting to do my own thing. So I've always kind of just, whatever's going on, I just do what I want to do. And then it kind of just progressed from there, really. So I never kind of got into entrepreneurship. It's just always the way I've been, and then I identified that that's who I was.
And sort of how did you progress then with your business? Because I hear you went to, is it to Peter Jones's Academy?
Yeah,
was that a good learning curve for you?
Yeah, it was, yeah. So I found out about that before they actually released it to the public. So I was part of a course that they called Pathfinder, which was, they needed 28 students to trial run it. And I was lucky enough, it was almost like a scholarship type deal. They paid for our travel, accommodation. It was really good, intensive 6 months. And for me, that was the real kind of catalyst that actually kind of took me, the raw energy and enthusiasm I had, and actually said, right, well, this is how you kind of start a business. This is the way you need to think. And from then on, it's just spiraled. And I've been up and down the country. I've been involved in so many things, had so many failures, some great successes. It's just been an absolute roller coaster ride. But that's really how it happened, all from that point at 17.
Do you think academies like that then offer a real good foundation stone for especially people, young people wanting to go into business?
Yeah. Well, a lot of us thought we were going to be made, like that was it, we're going to do 6 months and our names were associated with like celebrity entrepreneurs. It never happens like that. I think what they do, they give you the good groundwork, but you're never going to come out being a business person, because I know many people who have gone through them that have just kind of gone back. So you get out of it what you put in. But I think definitely if you're interested in business, go to things like that, because there's nothing else really out there at the moment.
Do you think as well that the recession at the minute, and with the media, they're always talking about the recession, do you think that's having a negative or a positive impact on maybe youngsters, maybe, you know, wanting to explore business at all?
Yeah, I think in general it's a positive thing. There's a lot of startup initiatives going on at the moment, funding initiatives. Youth entrepreneurship is being talked a lot about at the moment because of the unemployment. So people look into other things. But I think it's about getting a balance, because I think at the moment there's a lot of talk about, you know, it's almost like, yay, you can start a business and anyone can do it. And it's all kind of very fun and airy-fairy in a sense. And it's not just about starting a business. There's so much to it, so much to learn. And it takes a lot of commitment and persistence to start getting results. And so I think we need to bring people down a bit more and have honest conversations about business, as opposed to just being offered as another alternative. Because I think if you just try business to see how it goes, you're likely to fail. But if it's really for you, if you've really got something you want to get out of it and you're willing to put in the work, then I think you can make a real success of it.
Do you also think there's a lot of people who maybe weren't that academic at school? You know, they weren't so great at
That was me.
That was you.
That was me.
But they've got key skills. How do you think that they can take that forward in business?
Yeah, well, I think the reality of life, since I've gone out into the world is like a jungle. You could just be going along one day and then boom, something comes out and gets you. And so I've seen people who've gone through the system, they've gone to school, then university, then come out. Even people like 2-1s from some of the top universities, when they get into the real world, they're actually not prepared for the reality of it because they've been inside a kind of bubble. And so I think people who do have raw skills, they should never feel kind of degraded or less of a person because they didn't do well academically. I did not do well academically, and I've exceeded beyond my peers. And they look to me and say, Chris, how have you done it? So I think the more risk you take, the safer you actually are in life. It's a bit of like an illusion if you take the safe option, because you're never kind of expanding your mind, you're never putting yourself out there. Then when the nature of the world happens and these things, you know, go wrong, you don't know how to deal with them. So I think just get out there and give things a go.
Yeah, and I suppose another important thing is maybe to look at the schools and colleges as well. Do you think that more emphasis maybe could be put on, you know, careers lessons and maybe business lessons for those people who may not be academic, but obviously have some key skills to offer?
Yeah, I think schools, academies, colleges, places like that, they're prone to telling people how to think or what route they should take. And I think we should be teaching people to think differently or expand their options and look at things in different ways, giving people kind of the underlying philosophies and leaving it to them to make their own, as opposed to say, well, you know, you could do business, but really, let's be honest, it'd be better if you went down there. That's not true at all.
A lot of young people I've spoken to have said that sometimes it's quite difficult going into the workplace. You know, they feel they've got real good key skills, and yet the older generation aren't quite receptive to them. How would you, you know, help someone who's really got that drive, you know, for being in business?
Yeah. I think, I mean, it may sound like a bit of a cliche, but real recognises real. And so when I have been in the workplace, if I've just delivered value and just like honest, good work, then sometimes middle managers will have a problem with that, but the people who are actually being given the work where it really matters, they've recognised my talent and actually pulled me aside and just said, keep going. We kind of understand that some people will be threatened by that, but we believe in you. So I think as long as you're delivering real value and you're not just kind of an office monkey, so to speak, then you will get people who respond to that and want you to continue.
And employers as well, they're in a difficult financial situation at the minute in this climate, but, you know, what would you say to them as well to encourage them to, you know, to employ youngsters in particular?
Yeah, I'd say do you want a steady Eddie who's going to be there for 10 years and just, you know, do the norm? Or would you rather someone who's young and vibrant and going places, maybe there for 2 or 3 years, but they'll deliver more work in those 2 or 3 years than a steady Eddie would over 10 years? So, you know, you may be getting a higher turnover with the young people, but you know if you pick the right person, you're going to be getting real value out of them.
And just imagine, last question, just imagine for 1 minute that you were setting up your business tomorrow. and you know you're starting all fresh, what would be the best piece of advice, you know, looking back on how you've progressed, that you could give somebody who's about to set up in business?
Read as widely as possible. There's so many different aspects of business. When you're an entrepreneur, when you're starting up, you have to wear so many different hats. You know, in the first hour when you wake up, you may have to hit the phones. Then you've got to get on and do the website. There's so many different things. And so I think the more you read, the more you explore and expand your mind to look at different areas. That gives you really good kind of structure to pull things together. And then you can use that to know where you're going, use that to give you an edge.
Chris, thank you very, very much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure,
and
I'm sure that you are going to go from strength to strength in the years to
Cheers.
come. Thank you. Well, it's an absolute pleasure to introduce Ruth Amos. Hello, Ruth.
Hello.
You know, I do find your story just completely amazing. I find you're an absolute great ambassador for young and upcoming entrepreneurs.
Thank you. You're flattered.
But was it indeed, am I right in saying that it was actually a GCSE subject that's really started you in your brand?
Yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere. I had everything planned. I wanted to do law. And then suddenly in resistant materials, I'd come up with a product, won an award, and had kind of major PR. And it was like, wow, people want to buy the product. Probably should sell it then. So I kind of fell into business, and found that I loved it, and I loved the challenges, and since then set up 3 more. So it was kind of that whole thing of starting off and being really unsure and having no idea, never done business studies or anything, being chucked in the deep end, and finding that I loved it.
And it was, as I say, this great love for science and engineering.
Yeah, so scarcity came from seeing a problem. My teacher's father had a stroke and he couldn't use his stairs. And it kind of came from talking to him and realising I had no idea that was an issue, and kind of bit by bit kind of coming up with this idea. And I found that not only did it introduce me to business, but it introduced me more into engineering and science and STEM as a whole, which is science, technology, engineering and maths. And I just found it was something that I loved, and it's something that touches our everyday lives. So everything that you see, whether it's your hair straighteners or your iPad or your handbag, everything has been touched by some sort of engineer, whether it's through the fabrics or, you know, the way that it, you know, something's water resistant or whatever it is. And that was really interesting. And from a business point of view, it's about putting those two together and kind of utilising that and making money from it, really.
I mean, when your product first started to come to market, I mean, that must have been an exciting moment.
It was, and I think people kind of expect it just something like that to happen, like you press a button and suddenly you're making millions of them. And it doesn't, it's bit by bit, and it gradually builds up. So the first one that we made, like, I used to call my dad every time we'd sold one. I'd be like, oh, I've sold one. And then it got to the point where he's like, oh, you don't call me anymore when you sell them. I was like, no, because I'm still selling them, but it kind of, the excitement had worn off from, you know, I used to come back, oh, I've sold a stair stove, I've sold 2, I've done, and actually, as you grow and you progress, you suddenly realise, actually, yeah, you know, the first order that we shipped off to Ireland, kind of sat there thinking, oh, wow, that's so exciting. And it's kind of, it's those milestones that really make you think how far you're moving forward with it.
You have other passions as well, but one of them in particular is, you know, females really being involved in engineering and science. You know, how are you going to take that forward?
Well, for me, I think it's really important that we inspire the next generation. So I want to, you know, I do a lot of work in schools. I want to do more kind of engineering communication work. So work in the media, looking at how we inform youngsters about STEM, and also how we encourage them to look at that as a potential career. Or also, I mean, Britain is known for its engineering and its science and for the fantastic things that we do. And all of those still, they link to business as well. And they, you know, they do some amazing things for our economy and for the world, you know, as a whole. And in the UK, we're starting to slightly lose that and to lose that edge. And it's about looking at the next generation and how we can inspire them to go and do something really exciting.
I mean, when you actually look back at your schooling now, obviously it was very good. It's set you in good stead. But what would you say to those people who maybe aren't academic, but maybe have got business skills too? You know, would you encourage them to maybe try something different, maybe go into business?
Oh, definitely. I think I think business is one of those really interesting things because you meet a lot of people who are very academic, who are good at business, and people who really weren't academic at all and are fantastic at business. So actually, when it comes to things like business, how many GCSEs or A-levels or whether you went to school in the first place actually doesn't really matter. A lot of it is about people skills, it's about communication, and it's about having something that people want to buy or a service that people want to buy. And that's not something, you can get kind of an exam. When I go into schools and see like business exams and things, it's not the same.
No.
It's not really real business until you've actually set up a business. And it doesn't matter whether you succeed or fail first time. It's such a learning curve. The Americans, they don't think you're actually going to do well until you have failed. Whereas in the UK, people look at failure and go, oh, that's it, they failed. They write people off. And that's not the same in business.
No.
And it shouldn't be the same in society because actually you learn a lot more when you fail than when you actually succeed.
I think one thing that really struck me about you and your business and just reading a bit about you is how socially aware you are as a business. That's quite amazing, isn't it? Most people just carry on the business and they don't really care about what happens socially. But
yeah, there's opportunities that we've turned down because we felt that they weren't morally or ethically right. For us, we deal with our customers are often quite vulnerable in a sense because they're buying a product because they need the product. They physically are struggling with their stairs. Their stairs have become dangerous. And it could be quite easy to manipulate or to really push that. And my aim was not to do that because I think that you can add so much as a business to society. You can really make a difference. The people you employ, to the people you supply the product to the way you manufacture. Yeah. And for me, that was just as exciting as the actual making money part of the business as well. And I realised that you could do both. And that's what I really kind of enjoy. And I think it's really interesting. I've just come back from Zambia, helping a charity build a house out there. And it was such an amazing experience. But for me, it was actually the fantastic thing of doing something for someone else. Yeah. And no saying at all, but it was just so rewarding. And that's what I liked, I like to think that as a business, we're doing, something above and beyond for our customers. And it gives you that warm feeling.
Do you think, though, as well, when you look at situations like that, does that inspire you, especially with your engineering and science background, to actually go and develop and invent more products?
It was fascinating. Like, building the house was amazing, and actually we decided to put a water storage system on the side of the house, which doesn't usually happen over there. And it was just, I mean, there's fantastic things that come from, countries like Africa and India. I mean, the slums where they have they fill water bottles with bleach and they cut a hole in the top and they put it in the top of the roof. Wow. And it actually acts as a natural like light bulb because the slums are so dense that they can't get light through into individual houses. And it's things like that that are simple, and it's engineering, and that is, for me, that just encapsulates everything that I think engineering is about. And the little
cogs are whirring away.
It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be like, next generation kind of sci-fi impossible things. It can be something really simple that just affects people's lives.
Well, Ruth, you are truly an inspiration, not just to the young, but also to us oldies as well, but you are an inspiration, and I think we are going to see even greater things from you in the future. So thank you very much as well for joining us.
Thank you for talking
all
to
success
me.
for the future as well. Thank you very much, Ruth.
Thank you.
Well, Michelle Mone, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here, and most of us ladies will know Michelle. You are the creator of Ultimo.
That's right,
Design a luxury lingerie brand, and it is fantastic stuff, I have to say. Use it myself.
Thank you. And now you tan and you scalp Ultimo Beauty, so yeah, we've got that too.
There's actually a lot to Ultimo, isn't there? Even gowns and everything now. I mean, how fabulous
everything.
is that?
And MGM International owns 9 brands, so we've not just got Ultimo, we've got Bra Queen Michelle at Tesco, and we've got Dore & Watt, Debenhams. We've got many brands that I started every single one of them. Yeah.
That must actually be a real great moment to see each one evolve and go through a process, isn't it?
Yeah, but they all have their trials and tribulations. It's never easy, and don't think that I've made it overnight. It's not the case. It's constant working hard, and I would say at this period in my life at the moment is probably the hardest. Yeah.
I think that's what's amazing about you, sort of, you know, going back to your roots.
Mm-hmm.
Being a teenager, Michelle, you know, you didn't find it easy, did you? You didn't have an easy life.
No, well, I've just been told that I probably grew up in an area like Grimsby, very working class and quite deprived as well. But, you know, I always say to people that it doesn't matter where you're from. If you're from, you know, the hardest place in the UK or the best place in the UK, it doesn't matter if you've got a degree or you've managed, you know, to not have nothing. I left school at 15. Or if you've got money or you don't have money, I think that as long as you have a passion, a determination and a can-do attitude, that you can almost achieve anything. We all come up against trials and tribulations every single day of our lives, and oh my God, have I had a bumper of a day today.
I think it's that steely determination in you, isn't it? You've really got, you know, you will succeed, and that's the end of it.
And do you know what? You've got to do whatever needs done. My case behind you is packed with my clothes for Sri Lanka. I'm leaving in the morning for Sri Lanka. Bikini, dresses, ball gown, lot. And I've had to cancel it just like half an hour ago. And it's 5:15 the night before. And I think that I don't like doing that, but in business, you have to do what comes first.
Is it that sort of niche of being able to, and that passion of being able to, you know, be flexible and adaptable and...
Take risks, yeah. I mean, at the moment, I'm in the proceeds of buying out my husband out of the business after he ran off with my designer, which is a bit unfortunate. So at the moment, that is primarily my focus, is to get shot of him.
And it must be stressful as well. You know, we all have those ups and downs in business, but it's being able to think, do you know what?
Yeah, it is. And, you know, you think that you've come to a deal yesterday and then you have a few more issues. But I suppose that it's really, really easy to give up. And on the way down in the 5.5 hours in that train to come here, I kind of thought, I can't take much more of it. You know, I'm just going to give up. And I go, what are you talking about? Don't be so stupid. You know, you can't do it.
That is what's great about you. And I think that's why you've probably won numerous accolades.
Yeah.
And you've also, you know, been given a role with the Prince's Trust for the Young. I mean, that's fantastic. But what does that involve for you?
Well, the Prince's Trust helped me start my business about 15 years ago when I went to them, and I had no funding, I had no business idea whatsoever. And they helped me, they gave me a mentor, they taught me how to do my tax and my VAT, and gave me a soft loan of £5,000. And that really started me off. And I think that it's such an incredible organisation, not just for helping, you know, people start their businesses, but the homeless and drug abuse and all sorts of things. So when Prince Charles asked me to join the board, I was like delighted, of course. So that's been 12 years now. And I just love helping as many people as I can. I mean, there's a good friend of mine, Sir Tom Hunter, and he always says to me, listen, hen, you should do 3 things in life. Work the hardest you can work, and play the hardest you can play, and give something back. And I think that successful people who don't give something back, well, they don't deserve to be successful. So, yeah, I try and do that as well as everything else.
Do you think as well?
4 hours sleep a night and OCD.
Now that's like Margaret Thatcher. That was 4 hours a night.
Well, I had 3.5 last night, so she probably got more than me, to be honest. But.
You mentioned there about the Prince's Trust, but do you think as well organisations like that, as well as like business centres that do things like E-Factor, are becoming to be a bit more important than the old-fashioned bank manager who used to be able to help you give you business advice?
I'm not saying the money's the easy part, of course. Every piece of the jigsaw has to be put together to make the big picture. But certainly, if I was to be given the money, I wouldn't have known how to do my books and my invoices. And so the two actually do come together. You need both. And I do think if I was to choose one, well, how can you choose without the other? I know that, but I would definitely choose the mentoring factor, because it's all right handing out money, but how long is it going to last? Whereas I was taken through the process of when you get to this turnover, you've got to do this, and all the stupid red tape, you know, procedures that you face.
They're things you're not sort of taught in school. You know, you have these careers lessons and all these other things. Do you think that this is where schools and colleges now can really, you know, up the game and have people like you to come in and talk to students?
Yeah, definitely. because, you know, it is a whole new world. Being an entrepreneur, you've got to wear so many different hats, and but, you know, there's some universities now that do have courses and entrepreneurship courses and everything else, and I definitely advise that. I mean, if I could, I might even go and do it myself.
Yeah, why not?
I might even go for 3 years
Let's go do another one.
and do a
Business.
course myself and see if I come out knowing anything more. But, you know, I do think it's all right having a degree and having the theory part, but you do also have to put it into practice. And I've got the practice part, I've not got the theory part.
You don't need it. You are one successful lady. But my final question, if you were Prime Minister and you got to change one thing in business, what would you do?
I would reduce the amount of red tape. It's far too complicated. You know, I mean, you've got to spend your time on your product or your service in order to set the business up. But the amount of time that you're taking away with stupid red tape, you know, procedures. And I know that we need some. I do know that we do need some, but far too much paperwork, far too complicated as well, especially for creative people. I'm a creative, you know, I've invented 13 inventions. I'm a designer, marketeer and PR and blah, blah, blah. And I am not that way inclined of sitting there reading stupid procedures, you know, it bores me to tears.
Yeah,
So
maybe less of the academic in schools and things like that, and more, do you think, of actually utilising creativity?
Yeah, I just think that the question was about the government. I just think that they need to just sit there and think, you know, what is actually needed and what is just a waste of time just to tick a few boxes and pushing paper around. You know, we don't need that. We just need to sell. I need to get on with business.
Well,
more time in that, less time in that.
Prime Minister, you take note if you're watching
this.
this.
I've told him. I've told him. I go for lunch with him quite a lot. There's, you know, maybe 10 or 12 of us, and I tell them all the time. But, you know, it's...
He's not listening.
Well, it's just kind of his ministers and everything, you know. I don't know, sometimes they do create more procedures to justify their job.
I agree with that one.
I'm going to make them start a business. I'm going to take one of them and make them start a business, and then they'll see how annoying it is.
Yes, that's what to do. Right. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. I know you've got a very busy evening, but it's an absolute pleasure to have you.
For inviting me.
I'm sure your success for Ultima will probably about another 20 or 30 businesses
well, let's
in
hope.
years' time.
Yeah, if I can get rid of them. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.